Soaring gas prices are part of the ongoing conversation on the campaign trail as 7 states hold primaries today.
That's right. Much like earlier primaries, the Republican contests are being seen as tests of loyalty to former President Trump. Elections are being held in California, Iowa, Mississippi, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota. Some of the races dealing with the Trump loyalty test include 3 South Dakota matchups. Governor Kristi Noem is facing challenger Stephen Hougard. Senator John Thune is facing 2 challengers, Bruce Whalen and Mark Mowry. And Congressman Dusty Johnson faces State Representative Taffy Howard. Joining us now from Washington is CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns.
So, Caitlin, good to see you. What other major races are being watched today?
Hi, Elaine. Great to see you, too. Yeah, a ton of races to watch today. A couple of themes that we're keeping an eye on. One, in California, there's a bunch of House races, and some of these could determine the makeup of the House, who controls the House after the November election, if they get through these primaries. And one in particular is going to be interesting to watch, and that's David Valadao. He is one of the handful of Republicans, remember, who voted to impeach former President Donald Trump. And this will be kind of a first test to see whether he can get through a primary. But he's not, the challenger running against him to his right is not backed by the former president. So this will be an interesting dynamic to watch as we're kind of keeping an eye on those who voted to impeach the former president and whether they're facing backlash among voters. Of course, Liz Cheney later in August is going to be the key to watch in that regard. But also in Montana, there's an interesting race. You may remember this name, Ryan Zinke. He was the former Interior Secretary under the Trump administration. He's running for Congress again. But what's interesting about Montana is they got a new congressional seat after the census and redistricting. They added a congressional seat. So you're now going to have 2 representatives from Montana. And Zinke is trying to clear a Republican field in his district to be able to have essentially his old job back in Congress. So those are important races to watch. And as you mentioned, of course, South Dakota as well, because those are big names to keep an eye on. John Thune, of course, who is a member of Republican leadership. He's expected to clear that primary, but he is also talked about as someone who could ascend the ranks on the Senate side. And Kristi Noem, of course, who is expected to win her primary for governor. She is someone who is often talked about as a potential 2024 presidential candidate. So keep an eye on some of those names.
Absolutely. And Caitlin, California's largest city is having a mayoral race. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Tanya, this is really the race to watch today because it's exploring some themes within the Democratic Party that we are going to be talking about this midterm season. So on the Democratic side, you have Karen Bass, of course, who was a former congresswoman. She was on the short list for Biden's VP, remember, in 2020. And then she's running against Rick Caruso, who is a well-funded billionaire, has poured about $40 million into this race. He used to be a Republican. But the interesting thing about this race is it's really testing these themes of crime, of homelessness, of the economy, inflation, all of these issues that are really coming to head and that the Democratic Party has to grapple with within its own ranks is really going to be explored in this primary. Now, it's expected to go into a runoff, so we may not get the results of who actually wins outright until November, but still an interesting race to keep an eye on because those themes are going to carry across all these districts across the country, and we'll get some more data points as these primaries move on.
So much to watch on this day. CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. So great to see you, Caitlin. Thank you.
Thank you.